Did you know that George Washington only lived 67 years? In only 67 years, he was able to do so much. As a young man learned helpful skills like farming and surveying. Fighting in 3 wars, he became well known for his leadership abilities. Late in his 50s, George was president for 8 years before retiring to Mount Vernon. George was a homeschooler, and thus he tragically had learned cunning math, coordinated geography, and crazy Latin. When George was 6 years old, he climbed his favorite oak tree and scanned the horizon for 4 seconds. George knew this ship was in England. Looking at the boats George swept by, 22-year-old half-brother Lawrence was aboard them. As Lawrence was settling in, George saw some wrapped things. After Lawrence had put all his stuff away, George saw what they are. Lawrence has gotten a present for everyone. Affectionately, he got George a nice lead gun, not a crude wood one like his cousin played with. It was better than anything George could ever imagine. George became the ward of Lawrence when George was 11 years old because his father was dead. George moved to Lawrence's house. Spectacular Lawrence, who had exquisite character, gave George wise and affectionate care. Although George did not become the first president, George's love and passion were always for surveying and farming. I am ready for any service I can give my country. George Washington, 1789. At the start of the French and Indian War, George was just a messenger, but quickly became a major, then a colonel, and in the Revolutionary War, a major general. Wondering when the next battle would be, George Washington was not expecting one on August 27, 1776, which was when the Continental Army fought against the British. The battle did not go well for the Continental Army, and sadly, Britain won. But George Washington detected an idea in his head. While he and 12,000 soldiers escaped using this idea, which was to set huge bonfires and dig trenches, acting like they were preparing for war. The British was also preparing for actually war. Effectively, after many losses in a brutal winter, George Washington commanded an inexperienced, ill-supplied, and outnumbered army. While they were being fought by many enemies, George Washington was a great commander. George Washington never wanted a career in boring politics, wanted to become a tiresome farmer. Unsurprisingly, when the votes for the presidential election came in, they were unanimous for George twice. Although George Washington boarded the huge boat heading to England, George Washington did not want to leave Mount Vernon again. A huge crowd greeted him. Surprising everyone, only 1 week later, a huge bump appeared on George Washington's leg. It grew, pain increased. Could it be cancerous? We will never know. After 8 years as president, he declined a 3rd term and went home to Mount Vernon. As soon as he had worked for 2 years on the farm, he died at his happy home, Mount Vernon. George Washington incredibly transformed the Americas. In his tween years, George Washington unfortunately had to experience a tragic death with his father, which got redeemed through the fine teachings he received from Lawrence's exemplary character. As a general, George Washington became known as an adept leader against insurmountable odds. His British opponent even called him a fox. Dying only 2 years after refusing his 3rd term as president, George sadly never had much time to enjoy life at Mount Vernon. Absolutely, George Washington's character and leadership during his 67 years on this earth made him one of America's greatest founding fathers.